بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Ask Eman, broadcasted live from the London studio of Iman Channel on Sky 757. We're also streaming it live via our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube channel. So please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our Facebook page. Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter, and do like our Instagram page. 0203 5150757, our studio number, 07916841483, our WhatsApp number. Both the numbers are displayed at the bottom of your screen. We're also streaming it live via our website, emanchannel.tv. I'm your host, Qamarul Islam, and tonight's guest is none other than Imam Abid Khan. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much for giving us your valuable time. As we speak, we are going to talk about a survey that has come out, and we'll be talking about England and Wales. Of course, not the game that has been taking place now, and we won't give out any scores. Of course, those who are will be watching the highlights later on, but we'll be talking about something that has been reported, Sheikh. Coincidentally, when the game has been played on, the report has come out or published on BBC, and that is, for our viewers, less than half of England and Wales population Christian, Census 2021 shows. And just a few paragraphs I need to read out to you so that we can have a discussion on it. For the first time, fewer than half of people in England and Wales describe themselves as Christian. The Census 2021 has revealed the proportion of people who said they were Christian was 46.2%, down from 59.3% in the last census in 2011. In contrast, the number who said they had no religion increased to 37.2% of the population, up from a quarter. Those identifying as Muslim rose from 4.9% in 2011 to 6.5% last year. Now, as British Muslim, reading this article and this important news, how should we reflect?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, wa sallallahu sallam wa barak ala rasul al-kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Yes, thank you for having me on, and I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes this a session which is beneficial and in our scales of good deeds the day when we all stand before our Maker. In respect to this question, yes, I got a glimpse of this earlier today myself as well, the news of the census data as it's been reported on by the ONS and elsewhere. And the reality is, yes, exactly, is nothing overly surprising there, with the number of Muslims having overall increased. Obviously, Muslims, like all other families, have kids, and the like. And of course, there's some conversions also which take place over the years, and so there's been an increase in the number of Muslims. I think around 1 million since the last census 10 years ago. In terms of the Christian population having dipped now below the threshold that was previously there, now is less than half of the population. Again, I think many would say there's not an overly great surprise there either. Someone even said earlier today that they thought that had happened some time ago. Of course, it had not. But this is a perception which is perhaps widely held. Now, in terms of my reaction and response to this, I want to start by saying I don't really think this is... well, for a start, this is certainly not some sort of game equivalent to the World Cup. England versus Wales. It's not Islam versus England and Wales. Islam is very much part of the English and Welsh landscape, and has been for a very, very long time. Indeed, the edifice of our civilization, even the books of many of the thinkers within the Western tradition, canon and tradition, Augustine and the like, they were translated through, and even the philosophers were translated via, from Arabic. So Avicenna himself, Ibn Sina, Averroes, Ibn Rushd, were translators and developers of thought that was passed down from the Greco-Roman traditions into the civilization which existed, even Andalus, and then later on, and was passed into our civilization in the West. So it's not a match, and of course, it's not a match in the sense that the ramifications, the consequences of following truth are far more important, because they give rise to a quality of inner serenity and life in this world and salvation in the hereafter. So it's more than just a game. That have been said, seeing the decrease of Christianity is not something which instinctively causes one to say hurrah. Being one needs to question what's that being replaced by. Overall, we as or certainly I myself am pleased only to see an increase in godliness. That's not because actually I or any other Muslim scholar, part of the who would be associated with a mainstream sort of thought, would ever consider any other religious tradition as being, if you like, the true representation of the Abrahamic monotheism, al-Islam, which is loving, willing surrender unto God. And is the path which the Quran says, "Inna dina indallahi al-Islam." The only way acceptable to God is that way of true strict Abrahamic monotheism, making God alone the object of all of our ultimate dreams and endeavors and sacrifices and worship and servitude and love above all. So that is not the reason, but the point is it often being giving way to a type of hedonism, nihilism, overall kind of postmodernistic sort of thought. That's certainly not something to be saying hurrah about. Rather, we are, at least when there's some semblance of godliness, it's almost like the person is closer and more ready to accept, the true message, which is unadulterated, the last revelation being that of the Quran, the final testament to humanity, and basically calls to the inner, which answers the inner calling of the fitrah, to know God and to want to be acquainted with Him further through worshipping Him and serving Him. So that's in terms of my comments regarding the decrease of Christianity within the population. And the concern, of course, is with that decrease, is the afterglow of Christianity, as one commentator several years ago, I remember, wrote, is that afterglow going to continue? How long will that afterglow? Some of the values, the good values which exist within society, were down to them having had some religious structure within their lives, in the families, let's say 3-4 generations back. How long is it sustainable to expect that to continue with the absence of there being some sort of godly values within our lifestyles, which kind of reinforce why does one need to be good if one can get away with being bad, ultimately. But then in terms of the increase of the Muslims, of course, that's something which is overall pleasing. But I'm reminded of a hadith, and I'm not saying this because I'm in some sort of gloomy mood, particularly today, and just try and turn good news into bad news, not at all. But I'm reminded of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he foretold us at a time when things wouldn't be too great, including for the Muslims, the adherence of truth, because actually the adherence to it was one which maybe, if I can use the word, it's my own choice of word here, cosmetic. It was superficial. It was surface level, let's say. It was surface level. Surface level meaning that actually religion has become more of an identity marker. It's something you can put in this, but actually an expression of your true way of life. Is it your signature of who you are and what you are? The Prophet ﷺ said, "You'll be many." The Sahaba said, "Would that die?"
Inshallah, Sheikh, we'll continue our discussion. Bear with us, my dear viewers. If you have just tuned in, you're watching Ask Eman live on Iman Channel on Sky 757 0203 515 0757, our studio number 079 1684 1483, our WhatsApp number. And of course, we're also live on our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube channel. So please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our Facebook page, YouTube channel, and do follow us on our Twitter and do like our Instagram page. Sheikh, apology, there was a slight technical glitch. I literally have 1.5 minutes. If you can continue, and then we'll go on to a break, and then we'll come back if there still needs to be discussed any matters.
So what was the last thing you heard me say? What was the last thing you heard me say, Brother Qamar?
You were discussing about the hadith and the Rasulullah ﷺ foretold.
Yes. So the hadith of the Prophet where he foretold a time when, in some ways, things might not be experienced in a particularly great way by the believers. He said, ستداعى عليكم الأمم كما تداعى الأكلة على قصعتها. The nations will gather, the way they gather around, a platter to have a feast. And they said, would that be because you're going to be few in number? And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Bal antum kathir, rather you'll be many." But you, even in spite of being multitudinal, the reality will be that your quality will be like that of the froth on the sea. It's so much, but what substance does it really have in it? So this is, and me citing this hadith is not because there's some sort of, concern specifically about what's going to happen and the fate of people and some clash of civilizations, God forbid, or the like, but really because the
Jazakallah.
believers always summoned to question what quality of faith they have.
Excellent. Sheikh, we'll continue our discussion because it's an important topic, an important subject, and especially it's been widely shared across various platforms. And inshallah, we'll continue with this discussion. And we've been talking about the Census 2021, about the religion. We'll continue our discussion after a short break. You're watching Ask Eman. Thank you very much. Welcome back. You're watching Ask Eman live on Iman Channel on Sky 757 in conversation with Sheikh and Imam Abid Khan, 0203 515 0757, our studio number 0791684 1483, our WhatsApp number. Both the numbers are displayed at the bottom of your TV screen. We're also streaming it live via our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and also via our website, emanchannel.tv. Humble reminder, please make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to all our platforms, including our Facebook page, YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and do like our Instagram page. Feel free to leave your questions in the comment section below, either on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. And you can, of course, send us WhatsApp text messages, and international viewers can use the WhatsApp number to call in directly into the studio. I know it's a busy day. It's an England and Wales game that is happening and taking place at this moment in time. And we are talking about England and Wales. So we have spoken slightly about it in the first segment, but about the faith, Christianity, that is what the article suggests less than half of England and Wales population, Christian Census 2021 shows. Now, Sheikh was mentioning about it. He was reflecting on this news as this news was widely shared on various platforms amongst our community. And surely and certainly there are certain things we should reflect, we should ponder upon it. And Sheikh, you were mentioning about you were reflecting on this article, and of course you and like many others have seen the article. Now the question to you would be the next, before we move on to our generated another question that we have already started receiving, and that is some Muslim I've seen in some platform, they're rejoicing, they're very pleased to hear that the Muslim population is increasing, alhamdulillah. However, should we be concerned about just by the numbers or by the quality of Islam, that we can implement deen in our life so that the society that we live in can see khair in it as well?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, yes, as we were saying prior to the commercial break, in reality, given the fact that this is not some sort of match or some sort of, winners, losers sort of thing, the winners are those who manage to save our souls before God and prepare ourselves for our standing before Him, and atone for our own inner sinfulness from within our lives. And the losers are those who who end up of their own accord losing the opportunity, our opportunities. We lose our opportunity to do that, and instead spend it in ways which would be, as Islam says, manifestly mistaken and wrong. So accordingly, that's the tone of the discussion, and that's then reflected in our considering the question you've asked and the answer that ensues therefrom. And that's to say that yes, overall we would rejoice if we feel that there are people who are greater in number, who are actually committed to godliness and to God Almighty, and to serving His creation and being compassionate to them, caring for them, serving them, etc. Basically, we're rejoicing then about an overall world where people are better, they're more committed to the highest expression of who they are and who they're created to be. Of course, but obviously a world which is going to lead to a better afterworld as well for everyone. That would be one thing. But simply having numbers on a census sheet is not what true Iman is about. Iman is about, and by Iman I don't mean the name of the channel. I refer to, of course, not the name of your channel, but in fact the name of the state of mind and inner state of reality, where one's committed, devoted to that belief itself. And it's more than an identity. And we mentioned this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he spoke about the lack of quality and how that would result in basically us all being poorer for it, individually and collectively. So yes, it's not something to rejoice about without there being, the deeds to go along with that, the commitment, the devotion. That having been said, just perhaps to end on a positive note in that respect of that question. Yeah, I guess someone having a baseline identity at some level gives us some modicum of hope that yes, perhaps from that might grow an actual sapling of faith itself. And from that may grow a tree which is deeply rooted in the person's life, where they are anchored and they have a sense of true direction in their life, and thus are being productive and godly and devoted, inshallah.
Thank you very much. Now, before I move on to our questions, just a couple of points I'd like to mention from the article. Why is this census important for us? The next census would be around 2031, I believe. And the reason why it's important, we should all engage and participate in it when it's up next, because it explores how British society is being shaped from people's answer to questions about themselves, their household, and their home. The result help organizations make decisions on planning and funding public services, including transport, education, and healthcare. The reason why England and Wales are mentioned and not Scotland, because Scotland's census was due to take place in 2021, but was delayed by a year due to COVID pandemic. If you would like to read the article, you will find it on the BBC website and under the heading "Less than half of England and Wales population Christian census 2021 shows." Now let's move on swiftly to our question. And first we'll be taking a generated question. Our viewers will be able to see that on screen. And the question is from Saida. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Can someone join Islamic spouses finding app if you wanted to get married, Sheikh?
Yeah, so I was going to just before answering the question itself, just say one line I wanted to summarize what I've been saying so far in the previous answer, which is the census tells you about what you yourself or we are saying about ourselves. And obviously what follows on from that, funding and the like, it doesn't tell us what we're concerned about, which is what God is saying about us. And that's what we care about as individuals. We want to know what Allah is saying about us collectively and our state, whether He is pleased with us. رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ, that they are pleased, that He's pleased with them and they're pleased with Him. That is the objective of Islam. And that's in the surah where Allah says, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ, that they were only commanded to make this godliness the center of their call in their life. And He said, ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمَ, that's the real religion, the real deen, rather. So yes, now in terms of marriage apps and the like, marriage itself is part of one's journey to godliness, because godliness, for as Islam sees it, encompasses every aspect of our existence, meaning we try and bring that state of devotion to God, that higher self within ourselves, to every aspect of our being. And that means that, we consider how we, start families, how we, try and an ethical livelihood and the like. So when it comes to starting a family, the way that a Muslim, as per the Quran, seeks to do is through nikah itself. And the nikah then happens, it's hoped that having people who are committed to a certain ethical framework itself is what will lead to a prosperous relationship, not just in terms of in the tangible senses of the word, but also in terms of the ethics being reinforced by one spouse and by both spouses reinforcing the other spouse's higher values and virtues and the reality of faith itself. And apps are just another mechanism of going about doing the exact same thing. Obviously, the same provisos that would exist, in a real life sort of scenario, would actually also exist in principle for online apps as well. So, for example, there would be, the natural provisos that one is sensible, one doesn't end up being in a state of prolonged discussions and isolation, etc., where discussions are kept tempered, guided and ethical, in terms of it's not actually turning into extramarital, Allah forbid, or even premarital for that matter, of course. And so really what one wants to do is there should be some sort of guidelines such that one is thinking, how are we ensuring that this is only getting the basic questions answered, maybe the contact details of, the girl's family, the guy's family, and then there's a discussion such that, you can get some of that. That might be an advisable way of going about it. Of course, there are other permissible ways to do it as well. But that's perhaps how some of the stories I've heard of that seem to have gone well. And of course, people will have their own individual.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. Inshallah, we'll return back to you. You're watching Ask Eman live on Iman Channel on Sky 757. Our telephone number that you can see displayed on the at the bottom of your screen, or 203 515 0757, our student number, 07916841483, our WhatsApp number. Also, we're streaming it live via our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube channel. I would like to thank our viewers who so far have sent us question on our YouTube platform. Inshallah, we'll be taking this question in the next segment. There are some interesting and good questions. One of the questions Sheikh has already answered in terms of finding spouse, but there is a second part which inshallah in the next segment I will be asking the Sheikh to give his view on the matter of finding spouse. Now, if you do have any questions, you can either send us a text via WhatsApp. You can drop us your question in the comment section below, either on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. And feel free to call in live. Presidency will always be given to our callers who call in live into the studio. Once again, 0203 515 0757. We have with us virtually Imam and Sheikh Abid Khan. And in the first segment, we had a brief discussion about the census report. If you have missed it, then feel free to look it up on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel, or Ask Eman highlights repeat will be either Sunday, Monday. You're watching Ask Eman. We'll be right back in a few moments. Thank you very much. Welcome back. You're watching Ask Eman live on Iman Channel on Sky 757. We're streaming it live through our Facebook page, YouTube channel, and of course via our website, emanchannel.tv. Humble reminder, please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to all our platforms, including our Facebook page, YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter, and of course, do like our Instagram page, In Conversation with Imam Abid Khan. Now, Sheikh, let's move on to our next generated question. And this question is from Moni. And the question is an important question, especially we have a lot of our professional brothers and sisters, in particular brothers, involved in this field. I work in a bank and I'm trying to switch jobs, but can't find anything reasonable. I'm worried about family duties and scared of leaving my job. Sheikh.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The bottom line is, Brother Muni, first of all, thank you for your question. And I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the finding of halal sustenance or rizq something which is facilitated both for yourself and for all our viewers and all the people who are similar in similar circumstances to yourself. Just a couple of points to be borne in mind. Firstly, obviously, I'm not going to be able to give any specific, if you like, suggestions to your own circumstances, simply because actually it's not clear, even from your question, the extent to which how closely you're going to be working with riba or usury in your role. Is it an incredibly ancillary role? Is it one which is actually aiding and assisting? Is it one which is directly relating to riba? So there are different degrees, if you like, concentric circles. And then there'll be some who say, even simply being, for example, cleaning in a bank, i.e. some sort of work which is totally unrelated to any of the actual direct businesses of the bank in terms of the finances and the like. It's not a financially related job. Even that would not be permissible. There's an opinion that very clearly they would say that. And then on the flip side, others would recognize that actually there'll come a time when some of the dust of riba will be cast very wide as per a hadith on the issue. And then there's this sort of gradation of concentric circles. So it's not clear from your question. And also, obviously, your specific nuances of how straightened the sort of circumstances are, and thus what sort of fatwa ought to be given. Fatwa being, if you like, bespoke advice from the Islamic lens, given your circumstances. But in general terms, one needs to be fully cognizant of the perils of riba, and that it's something which is very real. The Prophet ﷺ, in fact, the Quran states that it's something which is a very serious, severe sin, as per the ayat in Surah Al-Baqarah, in the second chapter of the Quran. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna Allah la'ana riba akilaha wa mukilaha wa katiba wa shahideh wa qala wa hum fil ithmi sawa." Indeed, God cursed the institution itself, or the act of riba, we could say, and that includes therefore by extension the one who consumes it, the one who pays it, the one who consumes it, the one who draws up the contract, and the witnesses. And he said they're in essence the same. They're the same because they all are, if you like, privy to it, party to it, and have enabled it to happen. And it couldn't have almost equally enabled it to happen. It couldn't have happened without one or the other. So that being said, it's a serious affair, but also your circumstances is something which is looked into. Try your very best, and inshallah seek advice from a local imam or scholar who's able to speak to your circumstances, inshallah ta'ala. Allah knows best.
Sheikh, just a clarification. Sometimes some local scholar will not be in a position to advise, especially when it comes to banking and finances. You are suggesting that an individual with specific problems or specific questions to get in touch with a qualified scholar who perhaps may have understanding of deen, at the same time understanding of banking and finance and how it works. What's your thought on that?
Right. It needs to be someone, because Islamically speaking, I mean, I guess one of the points we always say is that a scholar is not just someone who's like a beautiful reciter or someone who can do pastoral care, and there needs to be, if you like, relevant expertise. And that means that if yours is a fatwa question or one which requires expert, advice for extenuating circumstances, his caliber of scholarship reflects that, Islamically speaking, and he also has that. He's also has that sense of awareness and knowledge and field specialization within finance or financial matters as well.
Thank you. We understand here about the verse فأذنوا بحرب من الله ورسوله, but at the same time we're also aware ومن يتق الله يجعل له مخرجا ويرزقه من حيث لا يحتسب. If you kindly can translate for our viewers, Sheikh.
So, by way of giving you, Charles, some hope, is that if you continually make that dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He provides a way out for you, and you try and take the right steps, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you, in this verse in Surah At-Talaq, is giving you that hope, very real hope. The ayah which, in fact, Sayyidina Ibn Abbas anhuma said, it's the verse which is arja, it's the one gives the most raja, the most hope, is وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَل لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Whoever keeps their duty to God, Allah will not find a way out for them. He will create, He will make especially a way out for you. And He'll provide for you from places you could never imagine. And whoever relies upon God, then indeed He will suffice you. So that's in that verse, there are bearings of good news and glad tidings for the one who seeks to do that which is good and that which is right and proper with that depth of earnestness about it.
Excellent. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, and may Allah give us all the ability and tawfiq to earn in a halal manner that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and keeps us away from all forms of haram earnings and income. So now, Sheikh, let's move on to our next question, and this is from YouTube. Firoza Bakhsh is asking, who are the people of Majusa in Suratul Hajj? Now, let me, just for our viewers, I believe the viewer is reflecting to the verse إن الذين آمنوا والذين هادوا والصابئين والنصارى والمجوس والذين أشركوا إن الله يفصل بينهم يوم القيامة إن الله على كل شيء شهيد. Over to you, Sheikh.
Okay, the ayah which is in Surah Al-Hajj, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Al-Majus, the verse which you just referred to. Excuse me, ordinarily, we just basically explained that these were people who were known as Abadatun Nar, or they were, were fire worshippers. They worshipped, they saw fire itself as being representation of God Almighty, and that's mentioned in various sources such as Tafsir al-Qurtubi and other such classical era works of Quranic exegesis.
Thank you very much for that. Now let's move on to our next question, and that is also from YouTube. The question is, Assalamu alaikum, what is the iddah of a 58-year-old woman that lives alone? Can she go out to buy groceries, and does she have to spend her iddah time doing ibadah? Sheikh.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Again, when it comes to specific circumstances, we'd suggest that the lady in question or her family members speak to an Imam or qualified scholar. That's the first point I would make. Secondly, and sorry, even before that, if I can extend assume this is not a theoretical question, which is how I was initially answering it, but assuming this is a real circumstance, I want to just extend my, if you like, condolences to the lady in question and, of course, her family and all of the bereaved. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy upon their deceased and upon all the deceased of them. Ameen. In terms of the advice would be for her to speak to, or one of her family members to speak to Imam or a qualified scholar who'd be able to advise on the exact iddah. The reason for that is because the iddah itself is something which is subject to some variation depending on circumstances. So circumstances, by that I don't mean socio-political or socio-economic, but rather things like, for example, the iddah used to ordinarily historically be measured by, in some cases, by 3 cycles for a lady. Other circumstances for a lady of a certain age who may not be having cycles, then it would be, for example, 3 months altogether, just the month at least on its own. At the same time, it is, for example, for a lady who is expecting so it's an expectant mother. Then when she gives birth, then at the point of delivery, even if that's short of 3 months, even if that's short of 1 month, then according to the majority of you again, that would mark the end of the iddah as well. So it does vary from circumstance to circumstance. And rather than lumbering you with all those details here right now in these circumstances, the most judicious course of action would be for us to kind of suggest you speak to someone who can, probe slightly more with slightly more depth and nuance into the circumstance and give a suitable advice. What can you do during the iddah? More or less, it is not life is normal-ish, and I say ish because obviously one goes about one's normal life, but one's
Jazakallah.
obviously in a state of bereavement. So in that state of bereavement, there are certain things, and part.
Sheikh, apology. We'll come back to you when it comes to what can a person do when they're within the Iddah period. Apology for that. Viewers, you're watching Ask Eman live on Iman Channel on Sky 757. We'll be right back in a few moments. You're watching Ask Eman. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the last segment of Ask Eman, live on Iman Channel on Sky 757 or 203 515 0757. Our studio number 079 1684 1483, our WhatsApp number. Thank you to all our viewers who are sending us questions through our WhatsApp, and of course leaving questions on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our Facebook page, YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter, and do like our Instagram page. We're also streaming it live via our website, emanchannel.tv, in conversation with Sheikh Imam Abid Khan. He was answering a question asked by a sister about the iddah. We have covered the first two parts. Now it's the final part. If you have missed it, you can find the videos on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. And the repeat of this program you can watch on Ask Eman highlights either on Sunday or Monday. Now, Sheikh, the last part you started answering, but we had very limited time. So let me ask the question again, the last part, so that it will benefit our viewers that have joined with us just now. The person or woman who is spending her time in iddah, does she has to spend her time just doing ibadah?
The short answer is no. She carries on with life as normal. Obviously, the markers of kind of reflecting a person who's bereaved, a wife specifically, are there. So and kind of marking the fact that after that is the period when a woman would be, if she feels ready and she's looking to consider marriage again, then that would happen after the iddah. So the markers prior to that of kind of there's a state of mourning would be there. But beyond that, it's life as normal during those days where she's still staying in the residence, which is marital residence. And she'd be, not just confined to ritual worship alone. There's no such concept or notion.
Thank you very much. Now, the next question is on football. And while we do the show here, England and Wales are playing. And I can understand it's a question that is related to football. And that is watching football permissible? Sheikh.
So, the watching of football itself, I can't see why it would not be permissible. I'm just trying to think. I'm just
okay. Let me be the devil's advocate because of the awrah being revealed.
Qamar, why do you want to be devil's advocate?
It's a metaphor used here.
Not in context. It's a figure of speech. Yes, I understand. No, so yeah, in terms of awrah, so it's a good point. So the awrah, first of all, just for the viewers' benefit, awrah is a term, call it a technical term if you like, referring to one's modesty and the parts of one's body that ought not to be exposed to anyone, let's say outside marital context, or the like, or for an infant or the like, or someone for treatment purposes, etc. For a guy, that would then generally be between the navel and the knee. That being said, there are different opinions within the scholars regarding what is the awrah. So some call it an awrah, which is mughallada, and which is referring to actually the private part, and then that which is beyond it, which is referring to in the place of prayer itself, salah itself. So that's the part that is required. Some say that actually that should enable to knees. Always, others said it's for the prayer specifically, and beyond that, whatever is normal and decent and acceptable to be worn, then that would be the case. I have heard discussions where people have kind of suggested that actually quite a lot of footballers' body is quite often very well covered. I'll make a couple of points. Now that you've got me my thinking juice is going, Brother Qamar, I'll make a few points in addition. So the awrah, according to at least some opinions out there, is covered actually, because they'd say navel to knee, and really if it's up to the knee, it doesn't mean inclusive of the knee, according to one of the opinions out there. It's just above the knee. And that's more or less where the shorts often do end, I'm told. And even if it doesn't, then the opinion which says actually it's not even the entirety of the thigh that is a requirement for a person regardless. So according to those views, the awrah isn't really the major issue. The bigger issue is if one were to kind of try and put a critical lens on the practice of sport, on the big screen, so to speak, would probably be a question of what Islam thinks, if it looks with a slightly skeptical eye, not cynical, regarding the gargantuan sort of earnings of a football player, whether that's actually appropriate, whether they should ought to be beyond the general concept of a person, looking up to role models who are kind of, let's say, keeping fit and healthy and the like, obviously something good, and skillfulness is again something valuable, Islamically speaking, but maybe to that extent of earnings, maybe something questionable. Maybe taking them as role models in the absolute sense, rather than, let's say, people who are also using other faculties as well, let's say learned, etc. That might be something questionable. Perhaps I personally would highlight the slightly troubling nature from an Islamic angle, depending on what's going on inside the person themselves, the player themselves, when it comes to celebrations. So if the celebrations ultimately recognizes the dimension of godliness, of God being helping, enabling one to do what one does, of goodness, even scoring a goal, then that's obviously appropriate. If one wants to make it about one's own self, i.e. egocentric, then that's, Islamically speaking, something which is problematic. Problematic to watch, maybe, maybe not, but problematic to imbibe, i.e. for oneself as in internalized, most certainly that becomes an issue. So my point is, if one watches it or one doesn't watch it, certainly one doesn't want to become this person who, in their own field of expertise or whatever it might be, that you become egocentric or ego-centered. That's obviously something which is, Islamically speaking, frowned upon, to put it mildly. But beyond that, the sport itself to be watched is not inherently, impermissible in a way which all scholars would agree upon, let's just say.
Thank you very much for that. And before that, because I've got a generated question about the shaitan, and definitely as Muslim, we never advocate shaitan. The question is, how do we avoid the footstep of shaitan like it tells us in the Quran? It's generated question asked by brother Wasim.
Thank you, Brother Wasim, for your question. Yes, it's an important question. Important, obviously, for its practical value and worth, but important also because it's related to the ayah of the Quran. We know the Quranic guidance is there for our own felicity and success. So when Allah says, "La tattabi'u khutuwat ash-shaytan," do not follow the steps of the devil, those things which kind of, they may not be the base aspect of human behavior, but they are, if you like, the steps which immediately lead on to it. So yes, the actual acts which destroy family life altogether, infidelity, is one thing, but we know there's micro infidelities that can occur. Those are steps that lead to shaitan, steps that lead to the actual, and which are all part of the handiwork, if you like, of shaitan. So that would be an example of something which is, from the footsteps of shaitan. And all those things which take you closer to a place which is slightly more negative and dark and base could be broadly described as being potentially off the genre of khutuwat shaitan, and Allah knows best.
Thank you very much. I literally have two more questions to squeeze in, Sheikh. We've got literally 3.5 minutes. Next question is from YouTube. Assalamu alaikum. I have bad memories from the past. Sometimes I think the bad things that happen in my life are a result of my past deeds. How can I regain positivity in my life, Sheikh?
The reality to be borne in mind, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make your situation easy for you, brother or sister, who asked this question. The reality is something entirely different. And that is that good and bad is as a result of the mercy of God himself. When he enables us to do good, the fact that we are even taking stock of our own situation is usually a sign that we're trying to be doing good by the guidance of God himself. So I would encourage you to be aware that actually the fact that you are now thinking in such a way, not that, negative thoughts, but you're trying to figure out, is this good? Is this bad? Am I a good person? Am I trying to be a good person? That is a gift from God. He saw some goodness in you, and he then has enabled you to ask yourself these probing questions. However, don't let those probing questions become sources of cynicism and negativity. Rather recognize that if Allah sees some goodness in your heart, he will draw so much more good out for you, and that he is not there, as Allah says in the Quran, مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ إِن شَكَرْتُمْ وَآمَنْتُمْ. God has no need to punish you. Should you just only have Iman, you believe in God, and you try and show gratitude. So try and work on the positive front and be sure that he will then give you much, much goodness in return, by way of goodness of Iman and Islam and faithfulness, but also goodness in this world, and inshallah goodness in the hereafter.
Thank you very much. And Sheikh, would
Or
you?
Allah said,
Yeah, go ahead, Sheikh.
the Prophet said, I am as my servant thinks of me. So if you think good of him, you will find him to be far better than you can imagine.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And with regards to any mental or medical illnesses, please do consult a qualified doctor or GP. Next, or in fact, the last question, I literally have 1.5 minutes. How to be a good wife and mother in Islam? I'm worried about my role and I'm not sure if I'm doing well. I feel like that I get angry easily at my husband, even if I think it might be for the right reason. Please advise, share in 40 seconds if it's possible.
That's a challenging question to answer in 40 seconds, not least for the reason that I myself would not have direct access to that sort of experience as perhaps as a man. But I would suggest to you the following. Number one, sister, given the fact you've put this question to me, to make dua to Allah. And remember that Allah is the one who makes us, enables us to improve. And remember that He's always listening. And then when you empty your heart's emotions before His door, when you make prayers to Him and dua to Him, you will see a change in your life. Secondly, consider someone who you deem, in your personal estimation, to be a good role model, and perhaps try and have a conversation with them as well.
Jazakallah. Sheikh, unfortunately, our time is up. But we definitely, inshallah, will go over this question again when we are back again on Ask Eman. Until next time, you're watching or you've watched Ask Eman. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.